Hello everyone, I'm Alex and you're on the Virr channel, and today we'll be working on the second part of our video about playable Tavern. Let's not waste time and move on to our project. This video is continuation of the first part of building a playable tavern. Not just a decorative piece of your tabletop, but a tavern where you can actually play using the interior parts as a game board. In this specific part we will finalize the main steps and add a bit more color, if I can put it that way. And first of all we will start with filling the gaps and seams between the individual blocks. However, this step is optional, but I've always wanted to try this thing, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, to be honest. So here is the process. I used acrylic sealant, also known as acrylic caulking, to fill the gaps between the bricks. If you plan to use something like this, make sure to pick one that's labeled paintable. There are tons of options out there, so just use whatever brand is available to you. I haven't compared different brands myself, so I cannot recommend any specific one. But just make sure that it is paintable. If you manage to find black acrylic caulking, you can skip the next step. I did not find black and honestly did not look too hard. I usually just grab supplies from my local dollar store, so I had to tint the acrylic caulking using black acrylic ink. I did not measure the proportions exactly, but aimed for a dark grey or black color. That's the goal. And yes, as I said, this step is optional, especially if you plan to prime the whole model in black later. If you for some reason decide to prime in different color, then maybe it's worth to color the acrylic caulking with the color which more or less match your priming color. So the application process is very simple. I used the best tool that almost everyone has, my finger. Later I found out that adding a little bit of water makes the mixture much easier to apply and work with. Once all the gaps, holes and seams are filled, you will need to let it set for a bit. It depends on the material, but if you are working on several pieces at once, by the time you finish with the last one, the first one more or less should be ready. And here is the interesting, let's say, part. We will need to wash the pit. I know, it sounds odd, but trust me, we want to preserve all the texture we worked on so hard in each individual brick. And for this we need a sponge, some water and something to keep your workspace clean. You could use paper towels instead of sponge and water, but you will need quite a few of them, so it's up to you. And yes, this is going to get messy. So I highly recommend preparing paper towels, covering your workspace and wearing disposable gloves. Acrylic caulking is not aggressive for the skin, but always check the package of the products you are using. But it is definitely sticky and messy, so gloves will save you trouble. If you decide to brush instead of your fingers, that works too. Just use a cheap synthetic brush, because once you're done, trust me, the brush is going in the trash. And here is one more tip. If you have areas that should not be covered in caulking, protect them with painter's tape. Just like when painting, tape will help shield elements you want to keep clean. Let's get back to our build. After applying the acrylic caulking and allowing it to set, I gave it around 24 hours to fully dry. Depending on your material and conditions, you might need more or less time. Honestly, I probably should have waited longer, but given how big the project was and my eagerness to move forward, I decided to proceed anyway. Even though acrylic caulking is paintable, I still applied a black primer to ensure smoother and easier painting later on, especially since after washing some blocks were showing through quite a bit, and painting them without primer would have been tricky. I used Vallejo Black Primer with my airbrush, but any primer suitable for the plastic miniatures or XPS foam will work just fine. If you're not sure about your primer, test it first on a spare piece of the material to avoid damaging your project. While everything was drying, I decided to switch gears a bit so the process wouldn't feel too monotonous. While the caulking and primer were setting, I started working on the miniatures. As you might have seen in part 1, I used some fantastic miniatures from NPC Forge. This is not a paid promotion, oh, I wish it were. But I did receive a free trial subscription from them, likely either randomly or because I purchased models from their brands before. Either way, it was part of their welcome package. I will leave a link in the description below. I have my own miniature set, check out my Instagram for more details. Back to miniatures. I primed them black as well and add highlights using bright brush. Since we smoothly transferred into painting, I experimented with different color approaches. I tried a combination of heavy dry brushing and light painting. Honestly not sure how to define that technique, but the result did not really impress me. But I have to say, as many crafters say, things tend to look worse before they start looking good. I think there is some truth to that. Speaking about painting, for the wooden parts I used brown transparent inks and airbrush. They really help the wood looks more realistic and add a nice weathered effect. For the roof section, not sure if I can call them shingles since they are wooden, or maybe they are wooden shingles, but you get the idea. I used red inks. I thought this color schema went really well with the wood and the overall tavern design. After all, a tavern should attract attention and a bright roof makes sense to me. For the windows, I used Vallejo Liquid Mask. Such a great product when you need to protect some elements from accidental paint. Taping these tiny windows would take forever. With Liquid Mask, you simply apply it like paint. It dries pretty quickly, so don't wait too long, forming a rubbery film that's easy to remove later. When it is dry, you can paint right over it and peel it off afterward. I used a simple toothpick for removal. Just a heads up, be careful with your brushes, as this product can ruin even synthetic ones. Either use an old brush or one you don't might dedicate to rough jobs like this. Back to the miniatures. For the interior piece, I think using speed paint is absolutely justified. They helped you achieve the great results with minimum time investment, and the outcome was fantastic, to be honest. Next part, texture paint, if I can call it that. I used this technique before on the Tavern diorama. If you haven't seen it, check the link in video hints. I mixed prepared soil with paint and applied it to the areas meant to represent stone walls. Maybe not exactly stone walls, but you get the idea, right? And yes, as you might notice in the video, I completely forgot to add a couple of supports to one of the elements. I left this in the video on purpose. Do not afraid to fix mistakes or improve details even after painting or when you start painting. In the end, it's worth it. We all make mistakes, just don't get discouraged. But also, don't overdo it, or you will risk never finish the project, constantly making tweaks and tricks. I tried different tools for applying this texture. An old destroyed brush, sculpting tools, and even a piece of wood, which you will see later in this video. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Even a simple wooden coffee stir does the job perfectly. For upper panels of the third floor, I used homemade texture paint. But for the second floor, I decided to make a shortcut and try out something from my shelf. Acrylic paste from scale 75. I had used their spring version before for mini bases, but this time I had the autumn version, which seems like a perfect color match for the second floor, and it was. I really enjoyed working with it and loved the final result. Then come a bit of dry brushing to add highlights and make the elements pop, along with some homemade black wash on the stone area. I'm not the biggest fan of wash and shading products, to be honest, but for the large structures like buildings, like Tavern for example, they work wonderful. While the wash was drying, I took time to paint a couple of character miniatures. For this video I chose two minis I use often in my games, a bartender or innkeeper and a waitress. I printed these models a long time ago and I don't remember who the artist is. I believe for barkeeper I will find one, because approximately I remember who sculpted him, but for the waitress, sorry. When everything has dried, I moved on to sealing the stone parts with matte varnish. These areas are still quite soft even after painting, and I wanted to protect them since this is a gaming build after all. Also, I miscalculated a bit with the wash. Like I said, not my favorite product. Some areas ended up with noticeable stains, and I decided to experiment with something I've been meaning to try: Mod Podge and artificial moss. And because of those fails, this was the perfect opportunity, both to test the new material and cover up those little imperfections. Super simple process: apply Mod Podge to the areas you want, sprinkle an artificial moss, let it dry, and then use a big brush to remove the excess. You can obviously collect the leftover moss for further projects. I think the result looked just fantastic and adds extra flavor to the whole build. While the moss drying, I also shaded the roof areas with Citadel's Fuigal orange shade. I hope I pronounced it correct. I got those shades for a symbolic price at the local hobby store. So support your local shops and watch for their clearance sales. You can score some premium products for a great deal. And as a final step, I cut a cork sheet to make a base for the ground floor. And with all that, I considered my project complete. Thank you so much for staying for so long with me with this amazing project, and I really appreciate your support, likes, shares, and all this stuff. And if you're not still subscribed for my channel, consider to do that. You just need to hit this subscribe button. Let's not waste time and move to the final result. Let's go.